Welcome to the Friday edition of Juan's World, and today I'm going to try to ramble around the topic of open-mindedness. What does it mean to be open-minded, and who is open-minded and who isn't? And it's a more complicated topic than you might originally think, because for the most part, most of us, in pretty much everything we decide, are not particularly open-minded. We're creatures of habit and creatures of routine. And I am certainly as much as anybody. So let's start diving into this topic. When I was I think second year professor, I was teaching what was called freshman studies, which was a general writing, thinking, reading, omnibus subject for all freshmen that was 8 credits per semester for 2 semesters of the freshman year. So it was a pretty serious subject, and we had a number of texts that all of us, there were about 6 faculty members who taught 3 sections each, and there were some texts that we all shared, including Genesis, Plato's Republic, selected works of Marx, and so forth. And then we could intersperse them with ones that we chose individually. We had plenary lectures on the joint topics, and it was meant to be kind of baseline preparation for university study. And I remember in the second year that I was doing it, one student who was not necessarily the best student in the world, but he was able to think, which now always strikes me as important when I discover a student, particularly in the freshman year, who has the capacity to think critically. His name was Glenn Ridless. And the thing that I remember, so clearly was that the whole class, in the end of the first semester, had an essay due on Marx. I think I may have said a particular topic. I don't remember. I know we had talked a lot about alienation, false consciousness, a lot of things that aren't always in the forefront when people are discussing Marx and dialectical materialism and so forth. And clearly the idea of not being alienated from your own humanity struck Glenn like to the heart, and he didn't write the essay that I had set. He wrote an essay for me, very long essay, begun with the statement, I don't want to be alienated from myself. I want to do something that advances my ability to be human in the world, and so I'm not going to just do the assignment. I'm going to do one that matters to me. And in the process, he said, there are 20 things I want everyone to do to show that they are really conscious, really thinking, really alive. And I'm not sure I remember all of them, but I remember one, probably somewhere around number 14 or 15. It said, if you drink your coffee black, put cream in it. And I know it sounds like the simplest thing, and yet he was saying that we are such creatures of habit, and we tend not to change. So if, for example, you have to set your alarm clock to get up in the morning because you can't get up, and you have to have 2 cups of coffee in order to be ready to meet the day, and you have to take this bus and blah, blah, blah. Glenn was saying, well, just do something different. Just get up an hour early, go for a run. Just break your routine, even if the routine suits you. Just stop doing things because of habit. Start doing things because of choice. And start looking at what your routines are like and what your choices are like. Now that was a long, long time ago. That was nearly 40 years ago, and I kept Glenn's essay. I've not been in contact with him. I really would like to. I doubt whether he'll see this video. Because not only did he leave me with that gift of things to consider, he quit college. I said, okay, this is not the right choice for me. I'm going to go off and do something else. Now, I don't know what he did. He never kept in contact with me. I kept his essay, but he never kept in contact with me. And if nothing else, it ought to be a lesson to you that sometimes teachers learn from their students. The only teacher that learns from a student is a teacher who has the ability to learn, and that would be one of my definitions of being open-minded, to being open to new ideas. And part of the problem with contemporary science, including social science, is the inability of scientists to be open to new ideas because they're vested in certain paths. Their careers, their ambitions are set on those paths, and it's difficult to move out of them. That's a sad fact of life. So I take Glenn's proposals for changing my outlook to heart sometimes. But a lot of the time, I'm a creature of habit. I have a to-do list, and on it says a certain amount of writing every day, doing some video work every day, go for a walk every day. It's very hard to stop those habits because they're productive habits. They're things that I like to do. Although, as it happens, this morning I got working on my latest book, and I had a kind of mental rebellion. It's like, no, I can't do this. I'm going to do something else. So we all need to be aware of ways in which we should disrupt our habits as much as anything else to assure ourselves that our habits are right, that when we disrupt them, we say, yeah, no, I do that each day because I like it, it's good for me, it's productive. When I don't do it, it's not good. But that was Glenn's whole point, is that like, even if you take your coffee black, put cream in it sometimes. You may put cream in it and say, no, I like it black. And then you go back. But at least you've tested your assumptions, your biases, and so forth. Which leads me to the concept of confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is something that has been demonstrated to be a feature of psychology, social psychology, in at least the Euro-American world. That is that once you've held a particular belief, it's very difficult to change it, because you will be faced with information, conflicting information. Let's take something like the death penalty. Some people believe that it is a deterrent. People will be deterred from committing murder because of the death penalty. Well, statistical evidence that has been collected in multiple countries over multiple decades demonstrates definitively that the death penalty is not a deterrent. But if you present that information to people who believe that it is a deterrent, they simply ignore it, because it does not confirm what they inherently believe. And this is always true in the political sphere. That is, if you've got a political leader that you like and admire, it doesn't matter what information is presented about that political leader, you will continue to support that person. And that's called confirmation bias. So everybody is to a degree susceptible to confirmation bias, but it is possible to be open-minded about certain things and to evaluate conflicting data and say, well, these data appear to confirm what I think, and these data appear to reject it. Instead of just saying, okay, well, I'm going to accept this and reject this, we say, well, let me evaluate them neutrally. Well, that's really, really, really hard to do. And it's hard to do even in the sciences. There was, for a long time, a belief that things burned because they contained something called phlogiston. And this was the accepted hypothesis for a very great time, that when something like wood burned, the phlogiston burned off, and something called calx that was what remained. Like we think of it as ash. But then it was demonstrated that when something burned, the total products of combustion were heavier than before combustion. Now, if phlogiston was being given off, then it should be lighter. But the total products of combustion, which includes smoke, by the way, and the ash and everything, was heavier. The reason it was heavier was because the products of combustion involve the addition of oxygen, oxidation. Well, the phlogiston advocates didn't want to give up. Instead of being persuaded that oxygen was added, they still wanted to think of phlogiston as being given off. Well, why does everything get heavier? Because phlogiston has negative weight. So when you remove negative weight, you gain weight. Ingenious, but wrong. But it shows that people, even within science, are not willing to give up cherished theories without a fight. And those fights don't happen very often. They come along once in every few centuries. So I'm also certainly not convinced that my videos about various topics like happiness, vocation, and so forth are going to change anybody's minds, because I don't think anybody really is particularly open-minded, myself included. All I'm hoping is that I'm kind of like the sower in Jesus' parable, that I'm spreading seeds, and those seeds just fall in a lot of different places. They fall on rocky ground, they don't grow. They fall on the path, they get trodden on, or they get eaten by birds, and some of the seeds fall on good ground. I think the point that Jesus was actually trying to make was that most of his words fall on good ground. Just like the sower, most of his seed falls on good ground. It'd be a pretty bad farmer if most of his seed fell on rocky ground and was eaten by birds. I think that was his original point. I'm not going to be quite so arrogant. I'm just hoping that a few seeds now and again fall on fertile soil and they are productive somehow or other. I'm not in the business of changing minds. However, you might change some minds if you can get your friends to view my videos, to like and subscribe, and I will return on Tuesday. I'm not sure I'm going to actually do cooking for the whole time. It may be like last Tuesday, where I give you a little bit of a recipe, because I've been doing some adventurous things, and then ramble on about whatever else it is that floats my boat that day. Until then, have a good weekend.